Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sports Talk Show. I'm your host, Lucas Espinosa. Alongside me today, we have Adam Pribino, Chase Monday, Alex Sunday, and Nick. And we'll begin the show with a big topic, and feel free to think about it alongside.
You can live tweet us at hashtag generic sports talk show.
That's right. So our first question is, what is a sport? And Nick, you can go ahead.
All right, to me, a sport, it's just a physical competition between individuals. That's all there is to it. Don't need to go too in depth with this.
Alright, but here's where you're wrong. What about esports?
That's true.
That's very true. I
Esports.
never thought of that.
But in the dictionary definition, it does say it needs to have physical exertion involved.
Yeah, you move your fingers a lot in esports.
That's not physical exertion.
What would you call it?
I'd call that sitting in a chair and moving your hands.
It does take a lot of skill.
Here's the
Skill,
thing.
yes, but physical exertion.
You sit in
no.
a chair all day, your muscles start to ache. Explain that.
Take some ibuprofen.
Yeah.
Adam, what do you have to say about this?
I mean, I'm kind of siding with Chase here. I think it doesn't have to be just extreme physical activity. I mean, on the Wikipedia page, sports, hot air balloon racing. It says it's a sport.
And then at that point, when I'm sitting on my couch watching TV, when I'm reaching for the remote and changing the channel, is this a sport now?
You're not competing against
If you're
anybody.
trying to get the remote before someone else, maybe.
There's just no physical exertion involved there. If we're going by the dictionary definition, you
I'll
need to
admit,
be
I
using
run a
something-
bit when I
Well,
don't get
should
the remote.
should we base it off the dictionary definition?
I mean,
Yeah.
do you base all of your other definitions off the dictionary?
I would say most, but when times change, we have to, address like new, different information that comes out. Because esports, like you said, we consider esports sports.
I mean,
Maybe
they do
we're
have
not
support
sure,
for
you
the
know.
name.
And at this time, it's this middle ground where maybe these guys are considered athletes. I mean, we are like glorifying them in these $1 million, hundreds of millions of dollars in these
Well,
competitions and tournaments. At that point, I think we should consider it a sport. Now we're moving on to the way we hold athletes in the world. So, Nick, go ahead.
All right, guys. So I think we kind of put them on a pedestal. We don't look at their flaws so much as we look at how they perform in games. For example, the Cubs, they acquired a 106-mile-an-hour fastball throwing Aroldis Chapman from the Yankees, and that's what everyone focused on. However, earlier in the season, he was suspended for physically abusing his girlfriend. So I don't think that people focus on that at all when they think of him.
Well, I mean, we did suspend him, so we did look at it earlier in the season when it happened, and at this point we've moved past that, and we're trying not to dwell on that and let him win a World Series for the Cubs.
But the question is 30 days enough for abusing?
yeah, the fans are so committed to the team, like they'll let their athletes do whatever they want as long as they can win.
But a 30-day suspension, no jail time, is that equal to what your average person would serve if he physically abused
obviously,
his girlfriend?
No.
That just doesn't seem right to me. I don't know.
And then on the other end, we have fans freaking out, or not necessarily fans, but just people freaking out about athletes doing completely normal things. Like we look at these New York Giant players who were on a boat over the weekend. They're probably drinking, just partying, having a good time, but that's all good. And everyone all of a sudden has a problem with that.
And if it was just a group of normal guys going out on a boat partying, no one would question it. But
Mhm.
since they're elite athletes, why is that not okay?
Yeah.
Why can't they go out and have a good time?
You're not allowed to have fun.
Isn't that kind of what you give up when you become an athlete, though?
Yeah,
You
so
give up
true,
your
yeah, I
private
guess.
life, really. You give everything to your sport.
Well, I
Good
mean,
for that.
There's a
You-
huge double
You're
standard.
giving up your private life, but you can still go out and enjoy it. If you perform well, I don't see why you can't go out and have a good time every once in a while.
Yeah,
But
it's like
They
when
can,
you-
though. They can, but they'll have to face the scrutiny of
Yeah.
whether it's there or not.
Exactly. You'll notice that the Giants aren't playing too hot in the playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you win a Super Bowl, the winning quarterback always says, "I'm going to Disney World," but no one scrutinizes that. So
That's tradition, you know.
Yeah, it's tradition.
Yeah.
That's not the same thing as going out on a boat and
Yeah.
getting wasted.
Mm-hmm.
Disney World.
So speaking of suspensions, What about this? The Duke player Grayson Allen, getting suspended for tripping players. He tripped a whole bunch of guys. What are your thoughts on that?
I just think it's strange how he got a 1-game suspension from his coach.
Indefinite.
Yeah, the NCAA did nothing about the incident at all, even though he has tripped 3 players and tried to trip a 4th in his game back.
Well,
Yeah.
to me, it seemed like the coach suspended him because if he hadn't, he would have been scrutinized for it.
Yeah.
So he suspended him for 1 game, so he at least did it. But he wants to win. That's what he's getting paid for.
Yeah.
And Grayson Allen is their best player, so there's no way he's going to keep him out for more than 1 game.
Exactly. I just think that the NCAA should have to do something about it. They didn't suspend him at all.
I think the 1-game suspension adds to the scrutiny because when he was out there, it was pretty obvious, at least to me, that he was pretty deliberately trying to trip guys.
Mhm.
You know, out there, you know, tripping them, putting their careers in danger.
Yeah. And in the most recent game, you could see like his leg movements. Those aren't natural. He was obviously trying to catch a guy on one of them, and
Right.
he luckily didn't.
It's not the way you want to play the sport.
Like the coach,
Well, do you think that the NCAA didn't suspend him because they want him playing because him tripping people draws more attention to the NCAA?
Well,
There's-
if
I guess.
they did suspend him, that would be news.
That's
Mhm.
true.
That would
So
bring attention
either
to
one brings
NCAA.
attention to the
Yeah.
NCAA.
Did they
Yeah.
Did the NCAA want him to keep playing, to have people come to the games?
That's true.
I
He
don't
is
know.
one of the best players.
No, it's
I'm
all-
sure
no,
the
it's
coach
all money.
probably he wanted to make the suspension longer or as long as he could, so he wouldn't face as much scrutiny or criticism. But then the minute they start losing, I mean, it's Duke. They got to uphold the reputation. They got to get a good seed for March Madness, and they'll do whatever it takes, you know.
Let's look at what happened with Penn State when the Sandusky trials went on, and their whole football team, like 4 years. It took then that they 4 years later, they come back and they win the Big Ten championship.
Mhm.
Huge.
Mm-hmm.
They overcame that.
I just think it kind of brings into question, like, sportsmanship. How big of a deal is it nowadays? I don't know.
A similar case is Draymond Green last year during the playoffs was seen kicking multiple players and nothing was done.
Until he was suspended,
was
after
suspended.
in the
Mhm.
NBA Finals Game 6, I believe. He
Was
hit
that for
LeBron
getting a
James.
technical?
No, he hit LeBron James in a lower area and he got suspended for it.
Hmm.
So some people, like, it wasn't as bad as some of the other hits, so, like, a lot of people are questioning why was it that one that he got suspended for.
There's lots of gray area between
Mhm.
what's
Well-
suspendable or what is enough to make the league step in.
So maybe some guidelines should be brought in
Mm-hmm.
to really put permanent suspensions out there
Yeah.
for.
Will suspensions be enough to stop players from doing this?
We
Yeah,
could
I mean,
doing these kinds of
obviously-
things?
I
I mean, sometimes it's just like all like one character. Like obviously, you see Grayson Allen here. First game back, he's already back at it. But then, I don't have a specific example, but I'm sure there's some athletes they'll learn their lesson from that.
Yeah. all athletes love to play their sport,
Mhm.
so if they're not allowed to play it, then they're not going to have as much fun.
I think the leagues need to make an example of someone. Unfortunately, like say you're done, and then it would teach everyone like, oh, they're not messing around. You don't play the game right, you'll never play it again.
I think Grayson Allen would be a perfect person
Yeah.
to ban for life because
Yeah, no one really likes him,
No one
especially here in
likes him.
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And
Good point.
I just think that it sets a really bad example that he's allowed to play on and on now, because it just kind of says if you're good enough, doesn't matter what you do. Kind of like earlier, Aroldis Chapman. He's good enough where it doesn't matter that he abused someone. He's good enough to play.
Yeah.
Especially for the younger players growing up and watching them play,
Horrible
and they'll see
examples.
you only get one game suspension for trying to trick people. You know,
yeah, and I think-
chronically, that's
Yeah.
that's just not the right example we want to send to young kids. You know, and then they'll go on and play, setting an example for the next generation.
Mhm.
It's just a cycle.
Exactly. All right. I think that's good for that.
We'll cut to
topic.
a commercial break.
We'll cut to commercial. We'll be back in a second.
Badger Max, so you never miss again.
Badger Max will not be held liable for any missed shots.
Oh. That was bad. Call me Kyle Korver. Missing the pass, can it jump? That was going in. 2 for 8?
Yeah.
Oh. Oh.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sports Talk Show. So obviously you just saw that video of the Dolphins QB getting hit. It was a pretty aggressive hit, and it's just brings up the idea of how violent football can be. Adam?
I mean, he's obviously got a concussion from that, right?
Well, actually, he was cleared to go back and play that game, and
Wow.
he said afterwards that I just got smoked, and he knew he never had a concussion after that hit.
Okay, well, I think this player knows his body better than anyone. So if he says he doesn't have a concussion, it was
guess
just
that
a
is-
big. It was just a big football hit. Happens every game. I don't see how this is any sort of
I guess it brings up CTE as well, right?
Yeah, well, according to a new CTE survey in November of 2016, 90 of the 94 football players' brains tested had CTE. So that's a very high percentage.
It's a high percentage, but are they testing every single football player that has died, or only the ones that have showed symptoms of CTE?
They're showing the ones that have been donated to science.
And all of those have had symptoms of CTE, so of course those people
Yeah.
are going to show signs of CTE. So the 94% or whatever you brought up isn't very accurate.
It's not valid.
I mean, it's accurate. It's not inaccurate. 90 out of 94 football players that they tested have had CTE. It doesn't matter if they showed signs that they still had it. It's not inaccurate.
That's true. They're real people, and they're taking their lives for something that's avoidable. I think. I mean,
Yeah, even if he
is it avoidable in football? Such an aggressive game.
But if you scan every single NFL player that's died, the numbers would drop drastically.
I mean, yeah, but even if it drops a lot, it would still be a bigger percentage than anyone would want to see in the sport.
Mhm.
These people go out here and they play the sport they love only to die later because of it.
It brings up the question, are there ways to make football safer yet still fun to watch?
You would think they could come up with some kind of helmet technology or something that would protect the head more from these hits.
No helmet can stop a player from having a concussion.
That's-
That is scientifically proven.
Well, I heard news that they're making a helmet that measures how hard a player was hit, which makes it easier to detect if they had a concussion.
Diagnose
You can't
concussions. that
prevent
is.
it though,
We
because
definitely have technology to protect our players. Well, maybe not protect them, but be aware of how they are after a hit.
Are there rules we can enforce in the game though to make it safer even without new technology with helmets or other pans?
I mean,
Well-
hasn't it been proven, like even this, like your average football hits that everyone takes, it can still cause CTE.
Yeah, even just the
Subconcussive
average day-to-day
hits.
hits.
Yeah.
You'd be looking for.
And a couple years ago, didn't they enforce that new rule that said like helmet-to-helmet hits weren't allowed anymore, and they put a stop to those.
But yeah, we're still
Those-
seeing them almost every game.
Yeah, those still happen. Players get, flagged for them. And even during that Giants-Packers playoff game, there was a hit to Jordy Nelson right in his side. It was a head-first hit, and it took Jordy out of the game. And there was no penalty. But I suspect that the NFL is going to send him a strongly worded letter
Maybe
and,
a big
and,
fine.
and maybe a big fine for that.
A big fine, but not that big to an NFL player.
Maybe a 1-day indefinite suspension, if you may.
Well, if they lose, then
Which it looks like they're going to. They got a big
Yeah.
L today.
true.
Big
Okay.
L.
So that is concussions.